Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right, today we will continue with the reading of the Nevermind Game book by Sasana Dipika Ven Khanti Khemaji, or to some of us known as Mataji Khanti Khemaji. So today we are reading chapter 5, and the readings for chapter 1 to chapter 4 has been uploaded to YouTube, Samatha Vipassana YouTube channel. Okay, so chapter 5, the makeup of a human being. So Venerable Khema starts this chapter by describing what's the makeup of a human being. So a human being is made up of 5 parts. They have, just in one sec, having a bit of a technical just one moment. Okay, right. So Venerable Khema then starts by saying a human being is made up of 5 parts. They have a body, feeling, perception, thoughts, and consciousness. We have a body we have a body from top of the head down to the toes. We have feeling that is either pleasant, painful, or neutral. We have the power of perception, which is the part of our brain that perceives. So what does that mean? What is that perceives? So perceives, what names things which we experience. So that's what's called perception. So it perceives a dog, a tree, a red rose, or a blue sky. We have thoughts that are impersonally produced by our brain. Finally, we have consciousness. Consciousness cognizes. It comprehends, helps us understand our experience. So Q then says, okay. Now Venerable Khema then continues, in this book, I'm only going to talk to you about 7 of the 12 links of human cognition. This is because as you begin, you only need to remember these 7 links that demonstrate how suffering works and how to let go of it in daily life. All human beings have a pool of consciousness inside of them. It can only be activated through one of the 6 internal sense bases when they meet up with a sense-based object. Internally, we have eyes that see color and form. So that forms the optical system. Then we have ears that hear sounds, and that is the auditory system. And we have a nose that smells odors. That's our olfactory system. We have a tongue that experiences flavors. That is our oral system. And we have a body that experiences touch or physical sensations. So these 5 sense bases experience the external world. We also have a mind that experiences mind objects or thoughts arising internally, which interprets pleasant or painful feeling. So this is our mental system. So here we have the physical system, and then we have the mental system, and that then forms the basis of the 5 parts that we made: body, feeling, perception, thoughts, and consciousness, and the systems around that. All right, so here we have a table, and the meaning of these 3, the internal sense base, the external sense base, and the sense-based consciousness is contact. So for example, here, the internal sense base, the first one is eyes, and then external sense-based objects is color and form. Then the sense-based consciousness related to that is eye consciousness. So the meeting of eyes with the color and form in the eye consciousness is eye contact. And then the same with the rest. For example, the meeting of mind and thoughts or mind objects in the mind consciousness is mind contact. Okay, so whenever a working sense base meets with the sense-based object, that same sense-based consciousness arises. The meaning of these three leads to contact. So that's just what we just read. An example of this would be a working ear meeting a sound and ear consciousness arising. And the meaning of these three, ear sound and ear consciousness, make ear contact happen. So just as ear contact happens, the perception function of the brain named this sound as, say, bird call. All right, so let's say we hear a bird singing or calling out to another bird. It's because we have an ear and a sound is produced by that bird call. The two of them is what arises in our ear consciousness, and the meeting of these three results in an ear contact. So with a single feeling, within a single event, and that's quite important to note, all this is happening quite quickly in just one event. So with contact as condition, feeling arises, which is felt as either pleasant, painful, or neutral. With feeling as condition, craving arises, which is the I like it or the I don't like it mind. Number three, with craving as condition, clinging arises, which is all the stories about why I like it or dislike the feeling which came up. Number four, with clinging as condition, habitual emotional tendencies arise. So this is the barber part. And this is your personal library of past reactions. Okay? So with habitual emotional tendencies as condition, in an untrained mind, the birth of reaction arises. And here, the birth of reaction refers to the Pali word jati in the 12 links of dependent origination. So with birth of reaction as condition, the aging and death of that event occurs. So here it's important to highlight aging and death of that event. So we're talking about a particular event that occurs. Along with a proportional amount of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair arising. And this is followed by another event where this cycle gets repeated all over again. And this is how a whole mass of suffering comes to be. So this is directly from the text. And here is a very simple chart where you can see when the meeting of the, for example, eye and color or object leads to the arising of eye consciousness, and the meeting of the three leads to eye contact. When eye contact occurs, then a feeling of either pleasant, painful, or feeling arises, and that leads to then the craving, the I like it, I don't like it mind, and then all that subsequent links of the dependent origination then occurs one after the other. And it's important to note that this is her event that's being described here based on our interaction with the external world. And these links of dependent origination occur very, 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 very quickly in the mind. So continue. This is how you begin to see frame by frame the entire film for one single life event, recognizing a bird call. This is an observation of one phenomenological, I hope I got that right, and try that again, phenomenological event only. Okay, so this gives you an idea about how thoughts come up in the mind with each passing frame and cause personal opinions to arise based on memories of past reactions to similar experiences. So without identifying this cognitive process, we get subconsciously trapped into reproducing cycles from the past personalized links of craving. The I like it or I don't like it mind. So the I like it mind is a form of attachment. The I don't like it mind is the aversion, the opposite. And due to the speed at which these links operate, it is impossible to break out of this cycle if one does not know it exists. So it happens, the whole process occurs very, 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 very quick. And so for a person that does not even know that such a cycle, the 12 links in human cognition, if they do not have a clue at all, there is, it's very, very hard for them to break out of it. Now, Sister Khema continues using the example of the ear. Excuse me for a while. So the hearing of an ear is not personal, and that's important to know. It is simply the operation of a working ear. The actions of the sense bases are just part of a working human body. However, when craving occurs, I am initializing the first obvious personal opinion in this line of cognition. This is why the Buddha pointed to craving as a cause of suffering. Although craving is the most habitual part of the line of human cognition links, it is also the weakest one, because it gives itself away as it is arising. And that's interesting. So craving has an identifiable symptom when, as it arises, there is a marked change in the level of tension in the mind that filters down into the body each time I personally dislike. If craving is coming from me, that's good news, because now we know that I can change. So this is interesting to know, and I think that's a reason why Venerable Sister Khema, wanted to have these 3 words in bold and underline the word can. Yes, because it really boils down to whether we know and we have this knowledge, and knowing that we can change, and then also that we want to change, then it is possible. So assuming that the Buddha did not discover these 12 links of human cognition and did not discover that craving is the weakest link, and it's also the cause of suffering. If he did not discover this, then basically we are like, well, how are we going to fix the problem if we don't know where the source of the problem is and how to overcome that? So he, luckily for all of us, identified this, and also identified that craving manifests as tension and tightness in the mind. And so that's good news for everyone. So we need to remember that craving always arises with a change in tension and tightness in the mind and in the body. It is the I like it or the I don't like it mind. And if we look more closely at this, we'll realize that what sets off craving and rise in tension is me jumping into my personal opinion. Can you relate to this? So I'm just going to pause here for a moment. And would like to invite, if anyone is interested, to whether people in the audience here today, can you relate to that? Can you relate to the when the I like it or I don't like it mind occurs, and you notice a tension or tightness appear in the mind and in the body? Is that true for you? That's the question. Because if you disagree and if it doesn't agree for you, then there's no point continuing, because that may not solve the problem for you then. Does anyone have any comments they want to share here, whether they agree or disagree, or neither agree nor disagree, so no opinion? Yes, no? Maybe no opinion? Okay. We can continue. Just a moment, let me share. Okay. So Q then says, yes, I can see how this works. Oh, that's one thing I forgot what to do. Just a moment. Yes, Q says, yes, I can see how it works. Is this why we need to learn about this line of human cognition? Rainbow came out and says, yes, Q, this is like finding a buried diamond. It's always been here in the structure of the human being, but we can't see it unless it is pointed out. This way of inquiring into the mind leads us to see how feeling can change into a disturbing, reactive emotional state. These reactions are truly based on reenacting past emotional events. They are old emotions playing over again from the past while we live in the present time. Without this information, one lives an uninformed life. With this information, one can become far more confident about how everything is working. Eventually, you realize that this changes everything. And this last sentence here, although it's not bold, it's not highlighted here, but this is a very important sentence, and I thought to highlight it here, because when we understand and we are informed and we start practicing, and like in chapter 4, which we read last week, when we notice the tension tightness arise, or whatever it is that's causing tension tightness to arise, if we can just never mind, let it go, relax, smile, and then return to whatever task that we're doing or whatever object meditation that we're doing, eventually we'll come to a point where we realize, or the mind realizes, that everything changed. Because we really are basically changing our perception towards the external world. Okay, let's continue. So Q says, and what part does attachment or aversion play in this? And Venerable Kemaji says, interesting question. Both attachment and aversion manifest as increased tension and tightness when they develop. This point is the beginning of our war with the truth. It doesn't matter if you like something and personally want it to stay as it is, or you dislike something and personally desire to stop it from continuing. The tension will be there in any case, be it attachment or aversion. So here we can see that the steps that are highlighted in chapter 4, never mind, let it go, relax, smile, come back to your task or object of meditation, is basically a direct antidote to the attachment or aversion. The I like it, I don't like it, mine. Okay. All right, so your suffering starts and compounds itself from the first point of personal opinion, craving. I call this starting point POPO, point of personal opinion. So if you fail to let go of craving here, mind rapidly moves into mental proliferation. And this is where the clinging or the proliferation. So here it's explained for what proliferation is. Proliferation means ongoing expansion of thinking or runaway thinking. So those of us who dial in and listen to Venerable Sister Khema's talks before, so sometimes she also referred to the word looping, which it seems some people in psychology now use the term as well. So basically your thoughts just keep going in a loop. Or here, as mentioned, ongoing expansion of thinking or runaway thinking. And so mental proliferation is the expansion of that first personal opinion. So you have the point of personal opinion, popo or craving come up first, and that very quickly then moves into mental proliferation very quickly. And this is where mind connects old thoughts, personal memories, past events, and prior reactions into the current event. And we get caught in a replay, recognizing, reaction mode. So the three things here: replay, recognizing, and then reaction. So our grandmother would call this making a mountain out of a molehill. And she's right. This is just like an old car that needs to be started with a crank, and it goes pop. Then the engine begins to run rapidly along. And the rapid running of mind's engine is the mental proliferation of thoughts upon thoughts, of stories upon stories, beliefs upon beliefs, ideas and assumptions and concepts, and all the memories from your past that were similar to what is going on now. There is no peace when this repetition keeps going on. It must be equalized. And that can only happen when we learn about it so we can identify it and let it go. I tend to notice this in myself more and more these days, and try to remind myself, oh, when that happens, after I notice it, when I quickly just never mind, let it go, relax, smile, come back. And I've also seen how when the mental proliferation is allowed, whether in myself or in others, that keeps going and going without remembering to use the Nevermind Game, it really becomes a big hindrance. It grows into becoming a big hindrance, and then big reactions can occur very, 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 very quickly. So Q then says, this makes a lot of sense. Venerable Khema then continues, clinging, upadana, is holding on to the first opinion that comes up in the mind, and the expansion of that thought is mental proliferation. We expand things more by dragging past unessential memories into what is essentially happening in the present time. Your mind is running through past concepts, stories, and ideas about why you liked or disliked something similar in the past. And this builds up a lot of tension, and that is why mental proliferation feels like a runaway mind. It has a grasping sensation felt beyond craving as it gets stronger over time and turns into a habitual clinging. All of us hold on to patterns of behavior that feel familiar just to keep us safe. And here is another very interesting statement here that Venerable Khema shared with us. I'll just repeat it. All of us hold on to patterns of behavior that feel familiar just to keep us safe. So if we're not conscious of how our mental proliferation gets carried away, or the runaway mind gets carried away, and how that came to be from the I like it, I don't like it mind, if we're not careful and keep allowing that to turn into habitual tendencies or habitual emotional tendencies, that then leads on to patterns of behavior that we hold on to. And we continue to keep that pattern of behavior because of familiarity. Because the mind thinks that is what keeps us safe, keeps us human. So the clinging mind is where mental proliferation lives as it is jumping around like a tree-hopping monkey. So the Theravada tradition of elders call this mind monkey mind. And it's quite commonly used now. So once a monkey mind is activated, we are no longer experiencing only the contents of the present time event. We are now adding in a lot of other decoration to it by comparing it to past experiences. We are complicating the picture because we are moving into unessential territory that does not have to do with what is going on here and now. Probably you and I never realized these things while we were growing up because most people did not know about this. So we were never taught it in school. We simply reflected and repeated what was around us. Clinging happens very quickly. It's like watching a film. You don't realize that movies are made of individual frames moving past some form of light. So those of you who've never seen it before, those days in the past, the way they make movies literally is frame by frame. Even up to recently, how they do cartoons is very similar. They draw each frame, and then they just run through each frame very, very quickly, and then it becomes a movie. So this is the simile that's being used here. So observing human cognition or the links of this co-arising process of dependent origination is like looking at the individual frames of a film. We are examining a movie while standing inside a film editing room. We are slowing it down to see it scene by scene and frame by frame. And the movie is called My Life. The final cut is not yet complete, and that's important to note. So it's important to know this because then there is that faith that nothing is written in the future. So it all depends on what's happening right now. So this training will help you release this film for the world. And so we decide how our next cut is going to be. Changing our perspective frees the mind. What does that mean? So here, when Khema explains it a little bit further, liberation of mind leads to a liberation from suffering. The knowledge we have been talking about is the first step in liberating your mind from stress and suffering. You can't liberate yourself unless you understand how you got caught in a trap, can you? And Hugh says, no, you can't. It's impossible. That's true. If you don't know how we got caught in the first place, or we don't even know that we are in a trap, we can't possibly liberate ourselves. And a lot of us, a lot of people don't realize that it's a trap and it's a loop. And those of us who are lucky enough to discover this can then learn and practice how to escape from that loop or that trap. So here Venerable Khema goes on further and explains, liberation of mind can only occur when we shift our perspective and are able to see more deeply how life is happening. To observe this more clearly, we must practice giving up our personal opinion. Stop believing that everything we experience is only about me, is mine, myself, or who I am. When you experiment, consider for a moment, what if this isn't only about us? What if it's a more impersonal process? Observing through a more powerful lens to only see what is actually happening might reveal more details about how impersonal our experiences are. The natural impersonal nature of our existence begins to unfold before us. This quiet observation appears to be the most effective way to change. Any progress we make that reveals how things actually are is very liberating. Uncovering this kind of truth helps us let go of fear and reduces personal suffering. I want you to be sure you understand that human beings don't have to complete entire spiritual paths in order to gain enough wisdom to feel some relief from suffering. As soon as you begin practicing the 5 steps that we talked about in chapter 2, change begins to seem possible. It leads to a gradual reduction and elimination of suffering. Others around you will witness a change in your demeanor. You will seem lighter and you will be smiling more often than not. They will also notice your reluctance to react as you begin to give more thoughtful responses in all situations. Certainly, this helps them have a bit more hope that people can really change. Pretty soon, they will be asking you what you are doing to bring about this change. Everyone who follows these instructions without mixing other practices into them will make wonderful progress. Every person has a unique perspective, and subconsciously they choose the way they are going to look at life. Our perspective gives us more control on how calm we are as we learn to watch how things happen inside the mind. Because we can change our perspective, the outcome of events is not locked in stone. And this is really key to understand. We are now in charge and not just subject to everything that happens to us. We are now in charge because we can change our perspective. And the Nevermind Game really is designed to remind us that that can happen, changing our perspective. People become more positive people become more positive day by day as they practice the Nevermind Game. The outcome of each day becomes one's choice more often. It's good advice to go to sleep with a smile, and just before you fall asleep, remind your brain that you're going to wake up with a smile in the morning. Your brain is listening. I find it's quite interesting that Venerable Sister Khema included this in the book and reminded this. So a lot of there are some organizational psychologists that promote the idea of journaling, at least in, let's say, the last 15 minutes of the day or 30 minutes of the day before going to sleep. Some people suggest goal setting. Some people suggest journaling, for example, doing a gratitude exercise. So, for example, journaling or writing down, okay, today I'm grateful for this, that, whatever happened today, and then do the same practice tomorrow. Some people suggest writing down what they plan to do the next day, for example, or what's the first thing they're going to do the next day. And this practice is really based on some research that people have found that, the moment just before you go to sleep really sets the tone for the next day. And so let's say, for example, if we have the bad habit, I sometimes catch myself doing that. So if we have the bad habit of, scrolling and looking at our phone on all sorts of things, that also does set the tone to what happens the next day in the morning. So I would like to encourage people to experiment with this a little bit if they choose. So here, Sister Khema again says, of course, this is your choice. I am simply inviting you to take up the challenge and test out how you can communicate with your brain as you are learning this game. I can tell you that this made a world of difference for me when I decided to try this game for myself. So remember that your perspective isn't set in stone. So we can change our perspective. And it was influenced while you were growing up. All of us learned by example. We observed people around us and repeated their actions. Even though it feels like your perspective is unconscious, you need to remember that your outlook, your attitude, your intention, and your conduct in life is your own responsibility. No one else can change, only you can. And Q says, why should I believe you? And Venerable Khema said, well, of course, you need to keep a journal to see for yourself how this practice works in life. Knowing by hearing it from me or anyone else is not enough. And the only way it is possible for you to know that you can change your perspective for real is to practice it and see what happens. That is the knowledge and vision I told you about earlier. Changes in how you see things will lead to a change in your actions. Your perspective and behavior are interconnected. The changes will be noticed by those around you, and they too may become influenced to change in a positive, happier direction. This little practice affects the world around us. Whenever we change our perspective, our actions and experiences change too. Be patient. Permanent change is never instantaneous. Good things take time. But taking everything less personally and smiling more can change life pretty fast. If you keep practicing in the same way every time, and you remember that you do have the power of choice. So here, Sister Khema is reminding us of the word volition, because the word volition does come up in the text quite often. And that just means the power of choice. That is our willingness to choose what we want to do, how we want to respond. So if you keep practicing in the same way every time and you remember that you do have the power of choice, you will reach your destination and shift from a self-centered attitude to a selfless attitude, emanating forgiveness as you let things go with loving kindness, compassion, and joy. Things always seem to get brighter when we keep playing the Nevermind game. If we just embrace all of life as an adventure and keep on smiling so we can keep our sense of humor, we will keep exploring to the end or the beginning once more. And so here is just a quick picture of two people playing with some objects and their perceptions. So it all depends on what we choose to perceive. Oh, and that's the end of chapter 5. Okay. Let's stop the share for a little bit. So just before we go, I'd like to, so I tried a little bit different reading today for the benefit of the audience, and also just to see whether it may bring a little difference to people, maybe more beneficial as well. So I don't know. So it's a bit of an experiment as well. But was there any key takeaways today that struck a chord, let's say, with anyone? Did anything we read today struck a chord with you? Or kind of went, for you kind of went, it makes sense, I think. Or did anything you felt doesn't seem logical? Anyone care to share? Any comments, questions, observations, anything? Or if any of this does seem like a revision as well, like a kind of a confirmation on what you've already been practicing as well, do share. Sometimes it's also a good service to others when we share. It can be beneficial for others as well. So not necessarily those of us who are here today, but also possibly listeners to the recording as well. Any thoughts or observations? Anyone? Was today's reading better? Okay. can be improved? Yes, no? No? Okay. In any case, if anyone has any questions or oh, thanks for that. Okay, so it feels a bit better. Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Yep, I will also ask Dante what he thinks is, and we'll see how we do. Okay. So if there are no further questions or comments, I'm just gonna rip up the sharing of merits. Okay. Just let it one sec. Oops. Okay. Oops. I will share the screen so that for the benefit of those who do not have the text. So let's recite together. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you very much. I hope today's reading was beneficial, and this recording will be uploaded into the Samatha Vipassana YouTube channel in the next couple of days. Thank you again for dialing in, and wishing everyone a very good week ahead. May you continue to smile and continue the Nevermind game, and that everything will be coming out more positive for you as well. Good health and happiness to everyone. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. See you next week. Bye-bye. Bye.